So good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Effective Community Reintegration Post-Brain Injury. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kim Myers and I'm a Community Outreach Specialist at the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey. The Alliance is a nonprofit organization with a mission to provide education, awareness, prevention strategies, advocacy, and support for those who have been affected by brain injury. I would like to announce that we will be hosting another webinar on April 16th titled Aphasia, a Loss of Language, Not Intellect. More details will be coming in the next few weeks, so stay tuned for more information. Now, just a few housekeeping notes before we begin the presentation. Attendees' microphones have been muted. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please type them in the Q&A box. We will get to as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. The webinar is being recorded and it will be available for viewing on the BIANJ website. At the end of the webinar, a link for a post-webinar survey will be placed in the chat. We value your feedback, so you are encouraged to complete the survey. You must complete the survey in order to receive a certificate of attendance for the webinar. And once you complete the survey, you will automatically receive your certificate of attendance via email. So our presenter for today's webinar is Melissa Moyer. Melissa Moyer is the Health and Wellness Coordinator at Opportunity Project, a clubhouse model for adults who have sustained brain injuries. She has over 11 years of experience working with the brain injury community on health and wellness goals, including community integration activities. She has a master's degree in sports nutrition and exercise science from Marywood University, a bachelor's degree in culinary nutrition, and an associate's degree in culinary arts from Johnson & Wales University. So I am pleased to welcome Melissa Moyer.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Today's presentation and webinar is going to be on effective community integration post-brain injury. I'm just going to share my screen. Go. We're going to be taking a deeper look at the challenges that individuals who have sustained brain injuries face every day and how those impact their ability to reintegrate back into the community. We're going to talk about community reintegration activities and also strategies for successful community reintegration. So how do we define community reintegration? Throughout the literature research on community reintegration, there are many different definitions referred to. The Rehabilitation After Brain Injury textbook refers to community integration as a process of integrating back into society following brain injury. In an article published in the International Journal for Disability Management, it depicts it as residing in a home-like environment, acceptance and participation in a social network, and involvement in regular, meaningful activities. And Trigg, Wood, and Langton-Hewer describe it as a person's ability to perform activities of choice and to their own level of satisfaction. All these definitions have important aspects of what community reintegration encompasses. And by putting them all together, we're looking at embracing and actively participating in social networks, engaging in routine activities both within and beyond one's residence, empowering individuals to pursue activities of personal interest with a focus on fostering independence and achieving personal fulfillment, and engaging in activities that individuals perceive as contributing to a sense of normalcy after brain injury. So some community reintegration activities can include, but are not limited to, returning to driving, dining out, grocery shopping, social engagements, cooking, laundry, attending doctor's or therapist appointments, management of medications, attending a supported day program, and returning to work. So why is community reintegration so important? Community integration is an essential component for rehabilitation among TBI survivors, which yields positive outcomes in terms of social activities, community participation, and productive work. The primary goal of neurorehabilitation for individuals with acquired brain injuries is successful community integration, which commonly focuses on home independence, productivity, and social engagement. Effective rehabilitation and community reintegration is considered essential for those with ABI and impeding the process of society's lack of knowledge and understanding. Time and time again, community reintegration is referred to as the primary goal after brain injury. We want to get individuals back to some sense of normalcy after such a traumatic and life-changing event. Brain injuries have long-lasting effects that could last a lifetime. Getting them back to a level of functionality that they had prior to the injury is not always possible, but there are ways we can assist them in progressing towards a realistic new normal that they are comfortable with. Adjusting to this new normal can take a lot of time. It is an adjustment for everyone involved, including the caregivers. Increasing community reintegration and independence will foster increased independence and confidence, decrease social isolation, and reduce caregiver burnout. So some of the common difficulties post-brain injury, some physical challenges that they may face can be changes or limitations to their range of motion, paralysis, hemiparesis, and gait abnormalities. They can also experience severe headaches and migraines, seizure disorders, blurred vision or double vision, large field cuts in their vision, and weakness in their extremities. Cognitive challenges post-brain injury can include struggles with memory, attention, concentration, learning, problem solving, and disorientation to time and place. Communication challenges can include all aspects of communication, language expressed by difficulty expressing oneself or understanding others, aphasia, word finding deficits, speech expressed by difficulties with motor or muscle control resulting in apraxia, dysarthria, difficulties controlling volume, and cognition expressed by deficits in attention, memory, and inhibition resulting in impaired ability to engage in appropriate social behavior. Behavioral challenges can be affected after brain injury. Changes in behavioral patterns can include changes in sleep patterns, frustration level, irritability, depression, anxiety, fatigue, and mood disorders. Perception changes after brain injury can include lightheadedness, dizziness, vertigo, loss of balance or coordination, issues with hearing or ringing in the ears, bad taste in the mouth, sensitivity to light or sound, and decreased spatial awareness. All of these challenges post-brain injury will affect one's ability to participate fully and independently in society. So when we look at factors impacting community reintegration, William C. Van Son and company looked at 119 individuals with moderate to severe brain injury. They completed the community integration questionnaire at 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and 24 and 36 months post-discharge from the hospital. They found the highest improvement in community integration questionnaire scores occurred 1 year post-brain injury, but that minor improvements were made in years 2 and 3. This tells us that we can expect large improvements from 3 months to 12 months post-discharge and smaller improvements in the years to come. Factors contributing to reintegration outcomes include cognitive function, age, bodily pain, fatigue, and severity of the injury, also correlated with return to work status. Some factors that, next slide, sorry. Lou J. and company looked at community integration at 1 and 10 years follow-up post-brain injury. They found that pain was a significant predictor of long-term community integration, along with age and cognitive function. Lower bodily pain intensity was significantly associated with better long-term functional outcomes presented by higher long-term community integration questionnaire scores. Previous studies have found bodily pain to be a common and often persistent among persons with TBI, affecting participation in daily activities and life roles. Cognitive functioning, with the strongest contributor to the explained variance in the community integration questionnaire, indicates that higher levels of cognitive functioning in the earlier stages of injury is a good predictor for better long-term community integration. And compared with younger counterparts with TBI, older individuals are more likely to sustain fall-related TBI. They are also, they need longer recovery time and are less likely to return to work and engage in social engagements after TBI. Lastly, they also found that persons with moderate traumatic brain injury were also more likely to be full-time employed as opposed to those with severe traumatic brain injuries. A separate study by Lama S. and company found fatigue was directly correlated with overall community integration. Oftentimes, brain injury is looked at as an invisible disability. Aside from physical and communication challenges faced by many of the cognitive changes can be difficult for the public to clearly understand. This societal lack of awareness can feel daunting and potentially play a role in motivating individuals with brain injury to participate in community integration activity. This is why Brain Injury Awareness Month is so important. During this month, we not only look to raise funds and gain government support for these individuals, but it also is important to educate the public on the challenges faced by individuals with brain injuries. Susan Hao Sun Lo stated in her research that there is a great demand for community support during their chronic stage of recovery to help individuals rebuild life skills to promote reintegration. Self-awareness after brain injury is also another factor affecting community reintegration. Manon referenced that an estimated 97% of individuals with moderate to severe TBI have displayed impaired self-awareness, but showed that this improves over time. Gatenbeck and company found that increased self-awareness at discharge correlated with higher rates of anxiety. However, it was also associated with better outcomes. They found that impaired self-awareness at discharge was at 69.1%. And Villalobos and company found that introducing a self-awareness intervention program as part of the overall rehabilitation process for patients with acquired brain injuries can enhance their self-awareness and improve their daily functionality. Impaired self-awareness plays a role in an individual's ability to fully understand the challenges they face and to find ways to overcome these challenges. If we are not aware of, or if we are not willing to accept that we have these challenges to overcome, the process, the progress will remain stagnant and slower. Compensation strategies are ways that we can adapt a task in order to complete said task easier and independently. These can range drastically based on the individual's needs. Every brain injury is different, so compensation strategies for one individual with a similar challenge as someone else, it might not work. So we're going to list just a couple strategies that we could use for compensation strategies. If we're unable to remember appointments, using a shared Google Calendar with the caregiver can help with reminders of important dates and appointments. Struggles with fine motor skills related to writing. We can use a voice recorder for important information. That's also a good external memory aid as well. And struggles with sensory overstimulation. We want to keep the noise and lights to a minimum and schedule rest periods. All this information is from a document on mass.gov's website on accommodations and compensatory strategies for cognitive deficits resulting from a traumatic brain injury in general. Occupational therapists are invaluable when it comes to developing individualized plans to promote independence with IADLs and ADLs. So if you're not seeing an occupational therapist individually, it can be proven beneficial for you. When we look at the community integration activity of grocery shopping, there's a lot of different factors that go into grocery shopping, a lot of cognitive and executive functioning that we need to use. So we're going to talk about some tips for making our grocery shopping experience a little easier. We're going to pick a day of the week that our schedule is not too busy. We don't have, 2 doctor's appointments to go to that day. Even if grocery shopping is the only thing we have scheduled for that day, that is fine. We want to also take into consideration the time that we're going to the store. We want to make sure it's a weeknight or another time where the grocery store isn't busy and full of patrons. I find my grocery store at home that I go to is the slowest on Wednesday nights. We want to make sure we plan out our transportation ahead of time, whether we're coordinating with a caregiver or a friend, or if we're driving ourselves. We want to make sure we have our route. If we need to take public transportation, we want to make sure we have that planned out ahead of time. We want to create an ingredient list based on the meal plan. We want to ensure that we're planning out our meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks for each day of the week, and develop an ingredient list from that plan. After we have that full list of ingredients, we're going to check our pantry and refrigerator for items that we might already have and organize our list by grocery store department, ideally in the order that you'll pass them. Typically, most grocery stores, you walk in at the produce section. So we would start with that. Then you might have a deli or bakery aisle. So we want to organize the list so it's in order that you're passing it through. That way, when we cross items off our list and we put them in our cart, we're not searching through the list and going from the top to the bottom to the middle. We're hopefully going down a line nice and neat to reduce that back and forth. We also want to try to go to a cashier as opposed to self-checkout. We want to also let the cashier bag our groceries if possible. That might alleviate some stress. If we are self-bagging, it may help to organize your items in bags by the storage area in your home. If you are bagging dry goods that go in your pantry, having them all in 1 or 2 bags by themselves, having your refrigerator items in a designated bag, and labeling those bags will make unloading when we get home easier. We also want to make sure we have our payment ready. Before paying cash, we want to make sure we're organizing our bills by type prior to going to the store to make that process a little easier. Vocational strategies. When we're considering vocational strategies to facilitate a successful return to work, it is crucial to commence with a skills assessment and an interest inventory. These assessments aim to align our members here at the clubhouse with their interests, with proficient skill sets that they have, ultimately enhancing their prospects for sustainable long-term employment. When interviewing, disclosing your injury is entirely at your discretion and based on your comfort level. If you are disclosing your injury in the interview, it can be useful because it opens up a discussion about how accommodating and inclusive the company is. It is also at this point, you can let the employer know exactly what accommodations you may need, which may help them move past any kind of unconscious bias that they may have. And it can lead to a more collaborative environment in order to ensure you are successful on the job. Job coaches and the supportive employment program through DVRS can assist with on-the-job success and mentoring, utilizing compensation strategies in order to modify processes and environment to foster an environment of success as well. Some resources for you. So in addition to the countless resources that BIANJ has, you can also connect with CSH Connect. It is a search engine tool that our partners over at Children's Specialized Hospital developed. CSHconnect.findhelp.com is an invaluable resource where you can find anything from physicians that are in your medical plan, specialists, therapists, programming, and various state resources you could use. As mentioned earlier, DVRS, the Division for Vocational Rehabilitation Services, is also an amazing resource to have for any disability. And onehandcan.com is a great resource for individuals with decreased mobility and range of motion on one side. You'll find all sorts of tips for completing activities of daily living with one hand on there. And the OT Toolkit and PT Toolkit by Cheryl Hall are also great resources for finding compensation strategies. Everything I talked about today is listed in my references page, my sources. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to hear me talk about effective community integration strategies today, and hopefully you found the information helpful.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for that wonderful presentation. Now we will go ahead and take a few questions. Let's see. So Jillian asked, she said, fantastic presentation. Thank you for sharing this information, and thank you for the OT shout out. I run an occupational therapy private practice in New Jersey with a focus on patient and caregiver training for more confidence and ease in safely accessing community events and community and home spaces. My biggest barrier at the moment is that people in need of such services often don't know that the help is available and don't necessarily know how or where to ask for what they need. Do you have any suggestions on the best ways for an OT to spread the word about the benefit of working on community engagement and encourage individuals and caregivers to seek services to address these activities?
It's an excellent question. It's so important that we do education with our clients with brain injury and facilitating and fostering that good communication and education piece with them. Tips in regards to getting the information out there. You can develop educational brochures, utilize some of the resources that I discussed. CSH.findhelp.com can help with finding different services in the state of New Jersey and beyond, specifically for what they're looking for. And BIANJ is also a great way to spread the word as well and connect people. They have a ton of resources for you to utilize.
Great. Thanks for sharing those resources. Someone else said thank you, very informative. Someone asked, what is the definition of mild, moderate, and severe TBI, and how are they synonymous with concussion, head injury, or other diagnoses that might be the same or similar? So all these terminologies.
Yeah. So mild TBI can include concussion. It all has to do with whether your Glasgow coma score at the hospital, whether it's a moderate or severe TBI. That is my best answer for that. But that's essentially how they define that in the literature.
Thanks for that response. And someone said, this was a great presentation. I always take notes during the week before I go out to shop or do something. Do you think that keeping notes is a good idea to just keep us focused to move ahead?
Absolutely. Anytime we can take notes and journal, it's always beneficial. When we're specifically looking at grocery store shopping, it's always a great idea to take notes on the different aisles, specifically where things are located, especially when we're looking at the dry goods section. And keeping track of what we're eating is always beneficial for our health, and tracking what we're eating and if we're having any kind of digestive issues, or correlating what we're eating with any symptoms that we're having. That also is a great connection to make.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And then someone said, could you go over what the resource One Hand Can provides on your resource page?
Yes, so the onehandcan.com is a resource for individuals that have weakness on one side or paralysis on one side. It provides strategies and compensatory strategies to do activities of daily living with one hand.
Great, thank you. And then someone asked, when the symptoms persist, does it change the diagnosis?
In regards to the diagnosis of moderate or severe traumatic brain injury.
I believe that's what they're referring to. If you mean something else, please feel free to put that in the chat and
I don't know if that necessarily changes the diagnosis if the symptoms persist. Brain injury is something that we may struggle with for our entire lives. So some of these symptoms might not go away, unfortunately. That is definitely a good question for your neurologist, though.
Absolutely. And I see that Michael Moran has his hand up, so I'm going to allow him to talk. Michael, I believe you have permission to talk. Oh, we can't hear you. Michael, not able to hear you, unfortunately. If you wanted to type something in the chat or in the Q&A, we could read it out loud. Otherwise, we're not able to hear you at the moment. So in the meantime, I'll give you a couple more questions. So do you have any resources to be able to start driving again?
So the Kessler Rehabilitation Center does a driving program. They will do a vision test and a driving eval with you and assess if that's something that's possible. If the individual has large field cuts in their vision or has a history of epilepsy, returning to driving might not be feasible. But they would be the ones to assess that and assist you and give you the tools that you need to get back to driving.
Great, thank you. And then someone had said, I'm 21 and have a TBI from a near fatal accident when I was 8 years ago. I deal with chronic migraines and have social anxiety. What would you recommend to make being social a little easier?
So When we have those chronic migraines, it's really hard to focus on anything and want to socialize with anyone. They can be extremely debilitating, unfortunately. Um, so we want to make sure that we're addressing that in the best way that we can, limiting the light exposure, making sure that we're staying hydrated, uh, making any dietary changes, decreasing our sodium content through our diet. And for social anxiety, it's a tough one, and it's a common issue after brain injury. Finding a support group, there are plenty of them out there for specifically traumatic brain injury survivors, and talking to a therapist about any kind of issues that you're having related to that can also help and alleviate some of the anxiety that you might have. And finding a community that supports you and understands what you're going through is also really important and takes some of the stress off.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Michael, we're still not able to hear you, unfortunately. If you want to try one more time, if you had something to add. Okay. If not, we'll jump over to Michelle, who has her hand up, and then we could jump back to you if we're able to hear you at that time. Michelle? Michelle, you're up if you have a question or a comment. We are not able to hear you at the moment. It looks as though your microphone is on, so I'm not sure what's going on with the sound there, but if you wanted to put something in the chat, please feel free and we'll answer it there. Oh, Michelle? Nope, okay. So I'll take you off for now, and then I'll put you back on. If you wanted to re-raise your hand, I'll put you back on if you're able to use the microphone later. But in the meantime, we'll take a couple more questions. So someone said, yeah, my son is only 31 years old. When he suffered a stroke that left him with aphasia, socialization is an issue because all of his peers are working. So you would answer the question about socialization.
Similarly, yeah, finding a support group with stroke survivors. RWJ has a stroke survivor a support group actually tomorrow, I believe, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And finding peers that know what you're going through can really help with the social anxiety and isolation. Identifying interests and hobbies can also help, and finding individuals with similar hobbies as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then someone else similarly had asked any recommendations as to some groups or activities. I know you had just mentioned some. I also want to quickly plug our support groups. We have
Yes.
support groups, both virtual and in person throughout the whole state, some for survivors, some for caregivers. So if you wanted to check those out, you can go on our website. And we also have social groups online for survivors as well. We have a happy hour. We have a book club. They talk about books and podcasts. We have one for movies and TV shows. So if you wanted to get involved with any of those, and I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about there, Melissa.
No, that covers it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. Let's see what else. Going through the chat. So someone asked about Kessler and what town in New Jersey. There's all different locations of Kessler throughout New Jersey, but I don't know if there's a specific one that has the driving program.
I believe it's West Orange.
West Orange.
Yeah, if you go to the Kessler Rehabilitation's website, they'll probably have more information on their driving program. But I believe it's West Orange. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look that up.
Okay, great, thanks. And then someone said they found it online. All right. Yeah, so Michael, coming back to, I saw your question in the chat. We could not hear you when I put you off mute, but let me see if we'll hear you this time. Michael? You can go ahead. Whoop, it looks like you're muted. So I think you have permissions to unmute yourself if you want to contribute. Michael? We're unfortunately still not able to hear you, even though it says that you're unmuted. I'm not sure if you can hear us on our end. If you can, just throw that in the chat so that we know that at least it's working on your end. And then we'll try and get that figured out. Okay. And someone had said that their son's age group is a challenge with socialization because he's 31, so everyone else is working. And a lot of the support groups that I guess maybe they had come across had older people like the stroke support groups. So do you have any tips for younger people who have sustained brain injuries and having trouble socializing?
So I'd recommend a plug for Opportunity Project. We do have a next gen program for individuals with brain injuries that are younger and potentially just entering the workforce or thinking about entering the workforce for the first time. That can be a great resource for you. Other than that, specifically for the younger age range, I don't know of any in the state that specifies that. But I can definitely look into it. It's definitely an area where there's probably a need. Children's Specialized Hospital might have something. They do have a brain injury program. But once the individual ages out of their services, I don't know if they do much to support them further, which is where we come in. So I would check out Opportunity Project and see what we can do for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then someone else had said about Kessler, West Orange is the main hub. Sometimes their Saddlebrook campus also has the driving program, but it varies. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you, Tara. And then Michelle Slepp had said Adler Aphasia Center has resources and support groups for those with aphasia specifically. So yeah, for those specifically with that diagnosis of aphasia, you can go through Adler. So thank you for that shout out as well to Adler. Someone else said Love Your Brain is another great place to find community for folks with TBI and other types of acquired brain injuries. Also a great point.
Yes.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I see Michael put something in the chat. Michael, you can try to talk again and see if we can hear you. I'm not sure if we can, though. If not, I'll just read your question from the chat. Okay, so Michael said, is there a list of support groups for TBI patients or resources to share with our loved ones on BIANJ website to find online resources? Yes, so I can link our page with all the support groups in the chat so that everyone is able to access that. And let me know if anyone has any questions about that as well. Okay, someone said I'm with Michael Moran. He does not have a question. Sorry for the confusion. It's okay, no worries. To re-enter the workforce, Jean asked, do you know of any companies that hire in New Jersey and if there are any bus resources in New Jersey?
So transportation resources for employment, you would be looking at Access Link through Department of They help with travel training, so that could be something that you might be interested in. As far as employers go, we specifically know at Opportunity Project, we have several members employed at Home Depot. They are a very inclusive organization hiring for individuals with disabilities. Don't necessarily have off the top of my head, but it depends on the individual's interest and lining that up with their skill set. It's very important to make sure that we're getting them in a position that they're interested in and can see themselves working in long term. We don't want to just put them in a position and it not be of interest and it not work out because it's not something that they're motivated to make work and find for.
I think you froze on my end, but I think we're back now. Oh, I think we're back now. Okay, sorry about that. It froze just for a minute or two. So more questions. Someone had, so we answered that one about the transportation, about workforce. And I put the list of support groups in the chat. So if anyone wants to view the list of BIANJ support groups, that is in the chat. You might have to scroll down on the page a little bit and then you'll see the whole list. So that is in there. And someone had asked, what is an interest inventory and vocational rehab skills assessments?
So those are assessments that our vocational specialist performs with our vocational members interested in returning to work. Details on that, you'd have to talk to Tom Shea. He is the one that performs those at our facility. You can also contact DVRS. They do similar evaluations in order to assess job placement and supportive employment and ways to support you in the job finding market.
Great, thanks. Let's see if there's any other questions. Okay, well, I have a quick question. What role do family members and caregivers play in supporting the community reintegration process?
They play a major role. And it's individualized. Everyone's brain injury affects them differently, and the level of support that they need varies. Caregivers play a role in not only physically transporting an individual to different appointments or therapists or social engagements, but also that emotional support as well, in encouraging them to participate socially or finding activities that they enjoy. That would be what I would say to that.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks. Someone said they like your background posters. Where do they get
Thank
them?
you. Amazon.
There you go, Amazon. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Someone asked about the resources link, so that should be in the chat. So if you clicked on the chat box on your screen, it should have been sent out to everyone. Let me know if you still can't see it. And someone had said aphasia where in Monmouth County. I believe you're referring to Adler Aphasia Center. So there's a couple different locations. There's one in North Jersey, and then there's also a few satellite locations. So I know some of the satellite ones. One is in Toms River. There might be one in Monmouth County, but I would have to check on that. So there are a few throughout the state. So I would recommend going on their website and checking that out. And again, that's Adler Aphasia Center. Okay, it looks like everyone can see the link in the chat, so that was good. All right, Michael, I see that you had mentioned that your hand was raised for a while. We could not hear you when I put you on the screen, so just let me know if you want me to read something out loud or try to put you back on, see if we can hear you. Let's see about anything else. Someone had mentioned SSA ticket to work. Are you familiar with SSA ticket to work?
I am not, but that is a question for our vocational specialist, Tom Shea, and DVRS as well.
Great, thank you. I cannot see linked. So the link should be in the chat. So if you go on the bottom of your screen, there should be a gray bar. There's one that says chat and it has a little like chat box icon. If you click on that, it should pop up with that link. And I'll say it out loud too, if that helps anyone. So if you go to www.bianj.org/support, that's the link there. Okay, so that is answered. And then I'll ask one more question. What are some long-term considerations or strategies for maintaining community reintegration and participation over time?
Long-term strategies would be consistency with your compensatory strategies, and finding support groups and a community that can assist you. Opportunity Project is a great resource for any adult with a brain injury. And BIANJ is also a fantastic resource. Again, they have a list of different support groups you can use and different activities to participate in. So finding a community essentially that can support you long term is very important.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then I saw Lorraine had also put that support group link in the Q&A. So if anyone is not able to see it in the chat, you might be able to see it in the Q&A. Thanks, Lorraine, for putting that in. All right. So I'll ask one more question. Can you provide any strategies or tips for navigating social interactions and maintaining relationships post brain injury, maybe with people that you were friends with before the brain injury, and now it's a process of maintaining that?
Maintaining relationships after brain injury can be difficult. I would suggest having an open dialogue with your friends and family about the challenges that you're facing so that they can be better aware of what you're going through, and also talking about strategies that assist you in getting through those interactions so that they can reinforce and carry over any compensatory strategies that you're working on. I would also suggest scheduling with a friend a phone call, even if it's just 5 minutes on a Friday afternoon after they get out of work or after you get out of work. Having that designated time just to talk about your week, and that can develop further into developing that relationship more. So that's my suggestion, I guess, in
Absolutely.
addition
Perfect.
to the
Thank you.
support groups.
For sure, for sure. And then someone had asked, do you know of any dating groups for people with disabilities? Or would your suggestion just be join these support groups, these social groups, and go from there?
Dating in particular, I I don't have anything specific for that. But I would assume the support group would be good. There probably is an app for that, I would say. I'm not too sure though. So
Great.
sorry.
And let me just see if anyone else has any questions. And just so everyone knows, I put the survey link in the chat. So you can go ahead and go to that link to take the survey to receive your certificate at the end of the webinar. One more check in the chat. All right. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your experience and your expertise with us. And if anyone's question was not answered in the chat today, please feel free to reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat. It's kmyers@bianj.org. And I will try to have our presenter answer it if yours was not answered today during the webinar. So one final reminder to just please complete that survey. And again, the link is in the chat. It's the form site link. And you'll automatically receive a certificate of attendance once you complete that. Thank you again for attending, and thank you, Melissa, for coming out and sharing your knowledge. And thanks for all the thoughtful comments and questions. And we hope to see everyone at the April 16th webinar. So that concludes today's webinar.
Thank you.